Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. It's titled, I Didn't Understand a Single Word That Man Said. Pronunciation can be tricky. We learn to speak by listening to others. We repeat what we hear. This is probably why both accents and perhaps even more so dialect are to some degree disappearing. But we hear so many different types of speech today than we did just to those around us in the past. We live in a global world. As a minister of religion, it is vitally important that people can understand what I am saying, that I can articulate. Now, of course, it's not just the words that I say that need to be heard and understood, but more importantly, it is the meaning beneath the words that mean the most, I think, to portray what's really there, what's beneath the words. And I know sometimes this does not happen. From time to time, people have repeated back to me things that they heard me say, which I've almost been the exact opposite of what I actually said. But thankfully, it doesn't happen very often. People generally, I think, understand what I'm trying to say, at least. I've had a bit of fun with this, and as have some friends of mine, with pronunciation recently, and our troubles pronouncing words that everybody has, really. Had it in worship, in the Sunday service, and I've been listening to people struggle at times, and I've been misunderstood at times recently too. Some of that's to do with accent and dialect, some of that's just to do with all sorts of things. Sometimes words are just hard to say. A member at Urmston, Derek Brown, had troubles with the word phenomenon recently. A word, no matter how hard he tried, he just could not say. Afterwards, I offered him a tip that I've suggested to many people over the years who have struggled with this particular word, phenomenon. And the tip actually comes from the Muppets, or the Muppet Show, and a song of theirs, the song being Mana Mana, because it kind of has the same rhythm as phenomenon. Mana Mana, Mana Mana, phenomenon. And I've noticed if you get people to say that song, eventually they start saying phenomenon. Unfortunately, they go phenomenon. No. Sometimes you've got to wash that bit out of your brain, so a bit tricky. That's how I got over the troubles, and that's what I suggest to other people to get over the troubles too. Now, after the struggles of Derek in the Sunday service in Urmston, the same reading was read at Altrincham, so I offered the person who was reading it, Penny, some help with how to pronounce that word. Actually, she had no trouble pronouncing that word, but she got so kind of caught up in trying to enunciate and pronounce words correctly that she made a bit of a pig's ear of the reading in the end, and she got very upset and worried about it. Well, not very upset, but just wasn't happy about it. So we've had a bit of fun about it. No one pronounces words correctly, and it's not what's really important. What matters is authenticity and getting to the meaning beneath what we are trying to say. I often get frustrated with myself because if I've been unable to articulate myself perfectly. And there are words that I struggle with, and I've been thinking about that recently. One word that I really struggle with on a regular basis is the word regularly. It never sounds right. It seems to get a bit caught up in my tongue. I might be getting a bit better at saying regularly these days, but I'm sure it's one of those words I struggle with. And actually, I shared about it on social media, and it was amazing the response that came back. I am not the only one who struggles regularly with the word regularly, and others shared other words that they struggle with too. Many of my friends struggle with the word phenomena or phenomenon. But other words that people struggle with are music, behavioural, that is quite tricky actually, I think I struggle with that one. Statistics, there you go. Disorientated, immediately, meteorological, tsunami, ibuprofen, cardigan, abominable, hilariously, enthusiasm, and many, many more. Apparently, Benedict Cumberbatch can't say penguin, but then how many people can't say Benedict Cumberbatch? I remember the former Leeds United manager, the great and wonderful Marcelo Bielsa, struggled with the word Ipswich and Leicester, I understand. And Americans and some English people actually famously struggle with Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. Now you have just heard me struggle with a few of them too, haven't you? I wonder what words you struggle with. It was real fun actually and connective to share these common struggles. And of course, like Marcelo Bielsa and other people, it's particularly difficult to pronounce English words if English is not your first language. But pronunciation is not the most important thing. What matters the most is what is at the heart of what we say, the meaning beneath the words we say and the words that we use. That said, it does help if people can understand what you are actually saying. And sadly, sometimes accents and dialect can get in the way, and maybe that's another reason why they're starting to disappear. I have been humbled on a couple of occasions when speaking publicly. Thankfully, I was able to laugh about myself about it later, but at the time it was a little frustrating. One time was when I was in Transylvania actually, and I'd been invited to deliver a sermon at a church, Transylvanian sermon, and each paragraph that I said in English was then immediately translated into Hungarian. There was a Hungarian language TV company there actually filming for their local news channel. After the service, they interviewed Caroline Jones, who had accompanied me, who speaks clearly, without any accent at all, received English really. They interviewed her, and after she'd been interviewed, they said, well, wouldn't you like to speak to the minister after you've spoken to me? He goes, oh no, there's no point speaking to him. We didn't understand a single word that man said. Humbling, don't you think? Another time was when I was asked to deliver a workshop in the West Midlands. And to kind of highlight what my theme, I read one of my favourite poems, the poem The Layers by Stanley Kunitz. Now afterwards, one or two people couldn't quite understand the point I'd been trying to make throughout the whole talk really, or some bits didn't quite gel together. Why? Particularly the poem. Because actually, I deliberately pronounce layers there, when actually I don't say layers, and people from where I'm from don't say it quite like that. I would say the layers, and that's what I said on the day. We live between the layers of life. And they thought I was talking about the lair of like a lion, not the layers of life. So it's purely my way of pronouncing, and particularly in the West Midlands, it's a very different way of saying those vowels together. Where I come from, when we say make sure, if on a cold day we would say make sure you wear plenty of layers. But obviously they don't mean a lion's lair, they mean layers of clothing. But that's just pronunciation from folk in West Yorkshire, so to speak. And obviously that stays with me, although I try now to overly pronounce that word. I overly correct, which kind of takes some of the heart out of the poem really. But you need to be understood, don't you? But all joking aside, yes, people don't always understand every word. Not every word is articulated correctly. But what is worse than that is when people don't get the heart of the meaning behind what is said. Or worse, that they are hurt by what is said. That the heart and the soul does not reach their heart and soul. It's important how we come across and what we're conveying by what we say. Tuesday evening this week saw the American presidential debate. two people offering different visions for America's future. It was pretty clear to me what was at the heart and the soul of their two visions. I hope it has the appropriate impact on those who will vote in the future. But I'm not going to go into my views about that too much. It's not what this is for. And I'm not American. What matters is what is at the heart of what we say. And the language that we use matters too. Words can be used either creatively or destructively. Ministers of religion are often referred to as ministers of the world, particularly in the dissenting tradition. And this comes from a Greek word that occurs more than 300 times in the New Testament alone. The word is logos. Now, traditional, you might call Trinitarian Christianity, would see the logos as meaning Jesus Christ. The classic example being in John 1 verse 1 and the following line, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." But I don't believe that that's exactly what's meant here. The translations use logos in a capital L, but that's just merely the translator that's doing that. Logos in the New Testament is used in so many, many ways and throughout the New Testament. They follow two basic lines of thought that in the meaning of logos. One is mind and the products of the mind, such as reason and logic. These are related to logos. And the other is an expression of that reason as a word, like a command, I guess, to do something. Here are some examples of what logos means. That word means in so many different ways. It's one word, but it has so many meanings, such as account, appearance, book, command, conversation, eloquence, flattery, grievance, heard, instruction, matter, message, ministry, news, proposal, question, reason, reasonable, reply, report, rule, rumour, said, say, saying, sentence, speaker, speaking, speech, story, story, talk, talking, teaching, testimony, things, this, truth, what, why, word and words. So it means so many things. And yet, the one meaning that seems to be predominated by logos is a connection to the Christ figure. But logos brings me back to the meaning of words, because I do think there is something divine, or there can be something divine and creative in the way that we use words, the way that we use language. When it's spoken in the right way, it can be a divine activity. That's if they're done so in a creative and loving context. The Sufis, the Sufi mystical tradition of Islam, see an association with divine creative power and the words spoken from the beloved's lips, from that divine love, if you like. So when you speak such words in love, you are a part of the divine creativity. Not dissimilar to logos, I think, in the New Testament. In fact, very similar, I think. Here's an example from Sinai. The souls of all the lovers are mobilized before your lips. With you, they are all and everything. Devoid of your lips, they are nothing. So we kiss life into being. Love, divine love, is created from these lips, from the word, from the logos, if you like. It matters how we speak, what we create with our lips. Our words will become our actions, and our words certainly speak of our intent or intention. The relationship between action in an honourable existence is what Hannah Arendt examined through her book, The Human Condition, published in 1958. She wrote, "With word and deed we insert ourselves into the human world, and this insertion is like a second birth, in which we confirm and take upon ourselves the naked fact of our original physical appearance. This insertion is not forced upon us by necessity like labour, and is not prompted by utility like work. It may be stimulated by the presence of others whose company we may wish to join, but it is never conditioned by them. Its impulse springs from the beginning, which came into the Word when we were born, to which we respond by beginning something new on our own initiative. To act, in its most general sense, means to take an initiative. To begin, as the Greek word archein, to begin, to lead, and eventually to rule indicates, to set something into motion, which is the original meaning of the Latin agere. So words have this divine creativity about them. Logos is divine creativity. And we are involved in that divine co-creative activity, or we can be part of the destruction. Are we part of the creation or the destruction of life? What is our choice to be? Well, then it matters the intent of our words, what is at our heart and soul. We create or destroy life through our words and our actions. Our meaning, our purpose, our love and our hate are shown through them. Hopefully this comes through, that this is articulated, what is at our heart and our soul, even if at times our words and actions can be clumsy, even if we stumble through our words and our deeds from time to time. But what really matters is our intent. What really matters is our meaning. What really matters is our logos. The language we use says a lot about our meaning both personally and culturally. Those who study language learn a great deal about humanity by the way that we use words and the emotions those words carry with them. Some speak of the meaning as a frame, that these frames are mental structures that shape the way that we view the world. The way that we see the world affects how we act in the world. Now, of course, we cannot see these frames. They exist at an unconscious level. They're not something that's visual to us. But certain words and certain language inspire us. Fire fills us with that divine spirit. They fire us up. They activate aspects of our being, aspects of our brain, but it happens at an unconscious level. But they stir something within. And then maybe they lead to divine creativity or undivine destruction. What matters about our words, our language, is our intent, the meaning beneath what we say. How we articulate that really matters in the world. How we bring that into being, into life. The Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, that divine activity which we are part of. I hope I'm making sense here about that. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, even if I'm not articulating it perfectly. I hope you can feel my intent. I hope you can understand my meaning, the meaning in my words. I hope you can feel my logos. But I know not always. Sometimes I'm not the best articulator on the planet. Sometimes I can be a poor minister too. And I'm reminded here of a joke I once heard about a preacher. Their car had broken down after the Sunday service. I empathise with that. Come Monday morning, the Reverend managed to drive the vehicle to the town's one garage for repairs. He says to the mechanic, "I hope you'll go easy on the cost. After all, I'm just a poor preacher." To which the mechanic replied, "Oh, I know. I heard you preach yesterday." I hope there is value in the words that I preach, even if the words are not articulated perfectly. I hope I'm not a poor preacher in that sense. The ability to speak publicly is a vital tool of ministry. So if a minister loses their voice or ability to speak, their effectiveness would be seriously compromised. Well, just that did happen to one of the two fathers of British Unitarianism, that being Joseph Priestley. For many, many years, Dr. Priestley struggled with a stammer. Now, I have a personal affection for Priestley, which has got nothing to do with his actual achievements. No, I have an affection for Priestley because he comes from Bristol, or Birstall as it should be pronounced, as it's pronounced not by the non-locals in West Yorkshire, near Leeds if you like, where I grew up and he grew up. We also both attended Batley Grammar School, although I think he's remembered better, more fondly than I am. There's no bus to me there. And there actually the comparisons end, I'm afraid. I have never been a leading radical figure politically and I've certainly never, or radical religiously, and I am not the most scientifically minded person on the planet. That said, thankfully, I have never suffered with a stammer. And I wonder sometimes what Priestley's accent would have actually sounded like, because the accent from 200 and odd years ago is very different today. From my grandfather's generation, the dialect and accent is so different to mine. So I wonder what Priestley himself sounded like, or maybe he spoke perfectly received English. Either way, he struggled with a stammer for parts of his adult life, and no doubt his childhood. He struggled with it for years. It must have been terribly difficult to preach with such an impediment, but he did overcome it, and it did not affect his later career. That said, it did cause him much distress, as he said, but one thing, it caused him distress, but it did save him from one thing, being seduced by the love of popular applause as a teacher. I had trouble there saying applause, did you notice? So he didn't get too high. Even though he had incredible achievements, he didn't get too big for his britches, so to speak, as we would say back home. My tradition lays great emphasis on the word and the preaching of the word. Okay, today we don't place authority at the door of Scripture. That's been replaced by the authority of the conscience of the individual, the enlightened individual, if you like. That said, the preached word, articulated correctly, is still central to our worship, certainly the worship I create. Still very important. But it's not been about speaking perfectly. What matters is the intent, the heart and the soul beneath the words, the logos, the meaning of which is more than the word itself. What's at the heart and soul of the words spoken? Are they part of the creation? Are they part of the destruction of life? Many people can speak well and articulately. I can't even say the word. I myself have had some training. I probably could do with more, but I do not speak perfectly and clearly all the time. I sometimes get too caught up in emotion, perhaps for some people's liking. And I don't want to be perfect. Who could relate to a perfect speaker or a perfect person with no passion and emotion? I need, of course, to maintain right reason, but also there's a place for passion too. I must remain true to who I am, to speak my truth in love and in a language that others can connect to, can mostly understand. To truly minister, people need to hear what my heart and my soul have to say. I need to speak the language of the heart, but not from someone else's book of life and experiences. No, these experiences must come from my own. Otherwise, how can I expect others to relate to what I have to say? I hope that by continually speaking my truth in love, I am able to encourage others to do likewise, and that they in turn continue to speak their truth in love. I trust that you understand my intent, that you understand my meaning, that you can connect to my logos, what is in my heart and soul. I hope that by sharing my truth in love, I encourage you to do the same. For me, this is the true purpose of the worship I create, to help you speak and to act your truth in love. That's what it's all about, and that we can all join together in the divine activity, become creators of this world and not destroyers. I'm going to end with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more. We can all bless, and we bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So let us bless and keep one another. Let kindness rule in our hearts and compassion in our lives. Let us go out into the world with love flowing from our hearts and our souls. And may the love of God hold us and sustain us. And may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. May we be creators and not destroyers of life. Amen.